2, 1.
Okay, before we get started, you did a really good job when we got out there, okay? I just dropped a hot dog on the ground.
Right time to drop a hot dog. The podcast is back.
And we're back.
And we're back. We're back with the pre-podcast. Let's do a really good job when we get out there. We made sure to include that as is tradition. Your hosts, Sean Fitzgerald, Jerry LeBlanc. We've got a new fantasy season, new blood, new life, new chance for glory or waffles. So, with all that being said, you all should know by now how this process works. We're going to be talking about top 3 teams in our view, bottom 3 teams in our view, our picks for the biggest steal, the biggest reach, and the biggest risk. And yes, you know it, we are also going to be doing our week 1 predictions. So, great chance to get to know kind of our insights about who's hot, who's not in Fantasyland this year. If you're just joining us for the first time, welcome. Right now, no one's in the chat, but if you are out there listening, let us know. I've got the chat up, and we will certainly discuss your questions or comments in the pod. So, without further ado, I have the draft board up on our screen. And I don't know about Jerry, but I have not done much prep work for this. You're going to get this off the cuff as much as I ever do this thing. So, with all that being said, top 3, bottom. Let's start with the top 3. Let's start with the good before we go to the bad. Do you want to? Oh, and before we begin, Alex Burchak in the chat. Alex, at some point, I want you. Here's your homework assignment, Alex. While we're talking about this, I want you to text in the chat your top 3 and your explanations for why. I don't need a 500-word essay, but give me your reasons. I'll read them on the pod since you're here with us. But Jerry, you want me to go first or you to go first on the top 3?
I can go first.
Okay.
I don't think this one is going to be much of a surprise, considering how many times I yelled "fuck" during the draft. Obviously, I like Scotty's team since he just continuously kept taking the people that I wanted to take. I was already on the fence between Cooper Kupp and Tyreek Hill. I would have taken Lamar Jackson I know I did. Obviously, I like Tyreek Hill, but I was on the fence between them. I took Cooper Kupp. Would have taken Lamar Jackson instead of Joe Burrow there. I wanted Josh Jacobs. I feel like I have Keenan Allen every single year, like up and down the roster. Alexander Madison's now the starter, and he got a starting running back in the 7th, 8th round.
Yeah,
5, 6, 7, 7th round. Wanted Jackson Smith and Jigba. No, it's just up and down his entire roster, just people that I wanted. It's really fucking annoying.
It's always the worst when somebody at the bookends is sniping your picks left and right. No, I actually. So you're stealing a little bit of my thunder. Scotty was one of my top 3 as well. I think, especially for someone who is the newest member in the league, I think he did. And drafting at a 9 spot, you get some good value there at the back end at the 9. But you also are missing out on those top flight quarterbacks generally. I was surprised that Lamar fell as low as 9. Not terribly so, but I thought Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts were all certainly top 5, maybe top 4, and they all did. But I thought Lamar would kind of go in that 6 to 8 range, and Jason, Window, and Jason all went running back or tight end, and it allowed Lamar to fall to him. I don't hate Daniel Jones where he got him. I think Goddard's a fine kind of mid-range tight end. I know, don't get me wrong. Would I have gone Daniel Jones there? Maybe.
In that round, I'm not really sure what the quarterbacks available were. This is part of the problem is if we weren't doing 2 quarterbacks and we were back to a regular draft, I can be yeah, no, this is too much of a reach. But it's still so hard because who knows what was available in that spot?
We know. So here's what I would have done if I were him, and this is nitpicking, right? But if I were him, you have Tyreek, Devontae, and Keenan Allen as your wide receivers 1, 2, and 3. You have Josh Jacobs, you have Lamar Jackson, right? I personally would have done Cam Akers there. I love Cam Akers. I think he's a great pick for window. And then you can still get Madison and Goddard where you got them. And then you can get, or actually, I'm sorry. See, that is tough because I think, no, you can still get Madison and then you get Geno Smith instead of Goddard. And in theory, no tight ends went other than Kyle Pitts after that. You get Goddard or Kyle Pitts. I understand he's your guy because you're an Eagles fan, but like, that's what I would have done. But that's micromanaging, and it's also playing with information we didn't know at the time. So
Yeah.
I love Scotty's team, though, top to bottom. I think it's extremely well balanced. I think Madison's a great RB2 to get late. I actually think Keenan Allen's kind of slept on. I think Tyreek and Devontae are studs. Jacobs is a stud. Lamar could be a top 5 quarterback, certainly, and was drafted accordingly. Like, there's just a lot to like about his draft. And also, even his late picks aren't bad. Like, he got Javonte Williams in the 10th. He got Tyler Boyd in the 13th. Not like a sexy pick, but like a number 3 guy in Cincinnati in theory. And he got Kyler Murray late too.
Well, so Kyler Murray's coming off a week 15 ACL tear.
Yes, and
he might miss the beginning of the season, but
at some point he comes back, and if Kyler Murray becomes fantasy relevant, I understand Arizona's a dumpster fire, but if Kyler Murray becomes fantasy relevant in any way, shape, or form, I mean, 14th round.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot to like about Scotty's team.
Yeah, I would agree. So we got the same one for one of our top 3. So I will pick what I think will be one that we'll both share for our top 3 as well. I'm going to pick you.
Oh,
pains
nice.
me though it does. No, like I think your team again. What I liked in drafts this year, I think you need to have 2 quarterbacks who are like going to finish in the top 10 in all likelihood. I think you have that, barring injury to Tua or Joe Burrow. And obviously, injury can screw any of us. But there is nothing to believe that Tua is any... Like, Tua Tagovailoa, and this is... I'm getting on my Miami Dolphins soapbox for 30 seconds. But Tua Tagovailoa is massively slept on in drafts. This is a guy who, before the concussion issues were ever a thing, was the number 1 statistical quarterback in the NFL. He was lighting the world on fire. He finished with the best quarterback rating in the NFL last year, even despite the injury issues. And he's a guy who was drafted as QB 10. This is a guy.
Take him that high?
He was QB 10. But he's a guy with top 5 upside. He's a guy who's an efficient quarterback, not going to be throwing interceptions. And if anything, the injury risk is minimized this year because he's been doing the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu once a week and has learned how to fall. We saw in the preseason when he was hit, falling on his side and back to avoid the hitting his head. I think he's massively underrated in this draft. I understand. I'm not saying you take him before the guys who were taken, but I think you got good value for where Tua is. I love Cooper Kupp. I love Joe Burrow. I love Joe Mixon. Calvin Ridley, it could be a wide receiver 1, and you got him at the end of the 5th round. Kenneth Walker has massive upside. George Kittle is an absolutely great tight end to have. There's a lot of mouths to feed in San Francisco. There's a little concern there.
Yeah.
But
he was still but he was the number 3 tight end last year while missing some time, and it's like anybody that's not Kelsey's.
Yeah, and Alex just mentioned, by the way, that he was getting Tua in round 5 consistently in mocks. He was targeting him, and I was targeting him at that range too. If he had, I can tell you right now, but for me getting Patrick Mahomes and Justin Fields in the first 2 rounds, I wanted Tua.
Oh, you were going for him. I know that.
But he would never have fallen to me in the 4th round, and that's the thing is I couldn't. I'm glad I did what I did because I couldn't have gotten him. But yeah, I love your team. There's Matt Stafford is a great backup quarterback to have. I think he's slept on a lot. Tyler Higbee's a great last round pick at the very end of the draft.
Yeah, I feel like he's still going to be a borderline in that 8 to 10 range at tight end, and having him as a backup is a good insurance policy because of the injury issues that George Kittle has had.
And one last thing too, Juju, say what you will about the guy, but like,
yeah, I'm a little up and down on
they
where
gotta throw the
land,
ball to somebody.
They gotta throw to somebody. Exactly. They gotta throw it to someone.
Right.
And he's shown that he can produce. I mean, he
Yeah.
did it it was only 1 year in Pittsburgh, but like, and obviously it was Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Mac Jones is the next Patrick Mahomes, right? I mean,
Absolutely. That's what we say on this pod. Honestly, even if Juju Smith-Schuster is a wide receiver 3, if you get him in the 12th round, that's a steal.
Oh yeah. And I picked him to be my wide receiver 5, 6, like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have you in my top 3.
Yeah, I mean, I've been a little up and down on my team. There's some things. I mean, obviously, I don't know how much I guess we're probably not going to get too far into the overall draft, but like retrospect, I've realized that I think, blanking on his name shows you how much I actually really want him. Justin Herbert went 4 picks later, and in retrospect, because of the injury issue with Joe Burrow, I probably should have gone Justin Herbert, but
it's tough, right? Because again, Joe Burrow was an absolute monster when healthy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think there's huge upside with both. So that's my second of my top 3. Who is your second?
So I feel like if you look at it, it doesn't look. It's not like overwhelming, but like I feel like Jason Smith just got a lot of good value. Austin Eckler is the same. Tony is I feel like he's going to be the same person he's been the last couple of years. Tony Pollard is now the full-time back there. I just pick after pick after pick. I just feel like that's somebody who is going to be able to produce. Amon-Ra St. Brown was a monster last year. Jalen Waddle is all the upside in the world. Kirk Cousins just keeps throwing for 4,000 yards. Jared Goff resurged. You got Kyle Pitts. Again, I took Kyle Pitts last year, and it was just like they just could not throw touchdowns. It seemed like they were only a running team last year. But Michael Thomas in the 11th round.
Yeah, I love that pick.
Didn't he lead the league in receiving like 2 years ago when he was healthy? Like
Slant King. Jason joined the chat, by the way, and said, "I'm so hard right now."
But honestly, I think that I'm obviously not from when Drew Brees was there, but from last year to this year, the Saints I feel like is a pretty big upgrade at quarterback. I mean, Jameis and that. Who else was it in New Orleans last year when Jameis got hurt?
Who remembers?
I honestly don't remember. That's why I'm like, no. I think Derek Carr's a big upgrade there. So, yeah, no, up and down his roster. Like, I mean, some of the back end people, I'm not super big. Like Romeo Doubs, I don't know. I mean, this is gonna. We'll get into my thoughts on Green Bay later, but yeah, no. I mean, like I said, I really did.
I don't disagree.
The first 6, I just love all of the first 6 picks of Jason's draft.
He wasn't in my top 3, but he didn't miss it by much. I don't hate his team. In fact, I think he is like if I had to do a playoff seeding right now, he's probably 4th or 5th in my view. And for a lot of the reasons you mentioned, Eckler and Pollard is a fantastic running back committee, and you shore that up in your first 2 rounds. Sun God and Penguin are exactly who you want as wide receiver 1 and 2. They both have wide receiver 1 upside. And I like his quarterback committee generally. I'm a little lower on Goff than others, I think. I think there is going to be some regression there. But Kirk Cousins, the thing is, both of them have a pretty high floor, and Kirk Cousins especially, like you said, he's going to throw for 4K. It's absolutely going to happen. I also think Kyle Pitts is, like, it's funny. There was that 3 tight end run at the start of the 8th round. And it was Kittle, Goddard, Pitts. I generally, one of my rules of thumb is I never want to be at the end of a run. You know what I mean? Because I feel like you're losing value.
Yeah.
Unless the only exception to that rule is unless the guy you want happens to be the one that didn't get drafted. And of those 3, I'd probably lean Kyle Pitts just because, like, it's a love the guy, hate the situation. Like, I just think his athleticism is so stupid good. He had a massive disappointing season last year. Again, if you think regression, a lot of upside, as you know. So, yeah, and then for the reasons you mentioned, Jordan Addison has tremendous upside, as does Michael Thomas, and you get them in the 9th and 11th rounds respectively, where you're trying to get these, home run shots that'll win your draft. Yeah. So, a lot to like in Jason's draft. I agree with that. I guess I'll pick my last of my top three. And honestly, um, this one was a little bit harder for me. Um, I think this guy's in kind of the same tier as Jason, but I gave him the slight edge. I gave James good marks on this draft. I loved Bijan Robinson. I was big on him, and to get him at 18, I don't hate it. Jamar Chase. I mean, I don't like the Jamar Chase pick, but I think he rebounded by getting Dak and Geno. I actually think Geno was one of the guys who I thought was a tremendous value. I was thinking about taking him instead of Chris Godwin, honestly. And he went right before him. But I think he has a high floor. I like J.K. Dobbins. I like Mike Evans. I like Mandrews. I think, I don't love the idea of not getting a tight end named Travis Kelce in the first 4 rounds. But, like, if you're going to do it, it's Mark Andrews. And there's just a lot of guys on his roster that could hit. David Montgomery, Zay Flowers, Brian Robinson. I think there's certainly potential. And Elijah Moore's target value is only going to increase with Jakeem Grant now going down. I mean, again, it's going to be him and Amari Cooper, right? Cleveland, Deshaun Watson's got to throw the ball to somebody. So I don't know. I just feel like he's gotten he has a diverse enough team, a lot of guys with tremendous upside. He absolutely, of the 3 teams we've talked about so far, yours, Scott, actually 4 teams, yours, Scott's, Jason Smith's, and his to me carries the most risk. His carries the most potential to flame out. But I also think he has the most, he has as much potential with Jason to win a title. If Bijan Robinson's the number 1 running back in fantasy, getting him at 18 is huge.
It is. I mean, I don't know how I feel about Bijan Robinson. Like, he obviously has all the talent in the world. Atlanta was already a good running team last year. So, like, you think that that's going to help. But, like, I feel like they're going to run the ball a lot. And they're going to split it up among multiple people. Like, I don't know. I feel like they want Bijan Robinson to be good for years. And they still have Cordarrelle Patterson. Tyler Algier was the starter, technically the starter last year, I believe. And he's still there. I don't know. I'm not quite as high on Robinson as everyone else seems to be.
I mean, if he doesn't establish himself as something of a bell cow, I do think it is a massive anchor on James's team.
If he's essentially on like a 3-headed monster rushing attack and he's getting 10 carries a game, it's kind of sucks that that's your first running back off the board.
But there are a lot of running backs this year that are like that. I mean, I drafted Ramondre Stevenson at the end of the 4th, and now Zeke is there, and there's concern that it's going to be more of a committee. The Detroit running back commit, Jahmyr Gibbs or David Montgomery, how's that going to be split up? Miami, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, and Devin Achane or whatever his name is. Like, how's that going to get split up? Chicago. Right? Like, there's so many running back committees nowadays that, I just, it's harder and harder to find these true bell cows.
Yeah. No, I agree.
So,
like I said, I don't hate his team. I don't know. I feel like everyone's so hyped on him, and I'm like, he's still a rookie running back. I got to see it to believe it.
That's fair. So, last of your top 3, and then I'll talk about Alex's, and then we'll go into bottom 3.
All right. So I was a little split here. So I guess I'm going to give the nod to your team. I was kind of stuck between you and McMillan. Obviously love Christian McCaffrey. He's just a walking 22 points a game if he's on.
He really is.
Like, it's just if he stays on the field, and that's a part of the big reason why later in my draft I took Elijah Mitchell. But no, love Stephon Diggs. I was very much hoping Trevor Lawrence was going to make it back to me because I would have taken him. Najee Harris just going to get a ton of work. Deebo Samuel's a monster. TJ Hawkinson is going to reset the tight end market at some point.
Yeah, I love Hawk. I love the Hawkinson pick for McMillan.
Yeah. I mean, Damian Pierce is the starter there. Derek Carr, I just talked about how I feel like Derek Carr's an upgrade there, and he's going to get Michael Thomas back. Like, there's just a lot of things I liked about his roster.
Sure.
Having said that, I do think that I give your team the nod. I mean, the quarterback situation's obviously better when you get Patrick Mahomes, like, kind of makes it easy. Justin Fields is also much more of a fantasy running back, in my opinion, than going to be a stud completely. For like, everyone seems to be high on Chicago. I don't think Justin Fields is going to lead them to a 12-win season. Like, that's just not in my head. I just don't see that happening. I don't really understand how Saquon fell to you in the third.
I won't complain about it.
I'm a little frustrated by that. like obviously I waited to go running back until the end of. Right, I'm trying to look at three different things.
Yeah, no,
yeah. I mean, I ended up getting Joe Mixon like at the end there, or I guess the beginning of the third, end of the second. But it's like, yeah, I'm a little frustrated with that. But yeah, I mean, I did like Ramondre Stevenson. Now that obviously with Zeke there, that kind of throws in some questions. But your wide receivers, obviously, it's like T. Higgins, assuming Joe Burrow's healthy, he's still the number 2 guy there. Jerry Jeudy is the number 1 guy there. I mean, I don't know. I feel like the more I talk, the more I'm like, now I'm leaning back towards McMillan.
Right. No, it's fair. No, it's a fair criticism. Like, my team is like, it's a bunch of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 candidates who have potential to absolutely like sneak into the top end of wide receiver 2, but there's no true wide receiver 1 on my team. That's what happens when you wait till the 5th round to draft a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Like,
especially in a 3 wide receiver league.
Absolutely. This is what I kept doing in mocks, and I didn't love it, but I also didn't hate it. Like, because there are a lot of question marks at the running back position. The later you go, there are guys I liked, like Cam. Like I said, I talked about Cam Akers before. I like him. James Cook is a guy I liked late. And there are some, but as I mentioned earlier, the further you get down the draft board, the more you're dealing with guys in committees or guys with question marks. And at the time of our draft, I wanted to get 2 guys who I felt like these are the guys who are going to be the bell cows. It's, and then of course Jerry Jeudy gets hurt soon after we draft. But, I do like Deontay Johnson. I do like Terry McLaurin. I think he's got a pretty high floor. I think Jeudy has monster upside. T. Higgins has a pretty high floor. And there's a couple picks late that I think were sneaky good. Antonio Gibson's a guy who I actually think is a great pick for where I got him. I was surprised.
I don't think it's bad. I mean, obviously, I think he is the more talented running back of that committee.
Yeah,
I had him last year. I thought that he didn't. I thought he played well enough to keep the job after he who must not be named who got shot. Because obviously, anytime we mention,
I feel like that's mentioned every podcast now. Poor Brian Robinson.
Yeah. See, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to mention him. All I know is that he took, despite getting shot, he takes Antonio Gibson's job, and like every game, like Antonio Gibson was outplaying him. I just don't get it.
Well, and I will say the one pick I'm probably most proud of late, the pick I think my best late round pick, was probably the 14th round, getting Raheem Mostert, just because I'm not saying he's going to have really much value, but he's probably he's a serviceable backup running back in a committee, but he is right now the RB1 in Miami. It's him and Jeff Wilson in a 2-headed committee.
Yeah. But I also do think they want to throw a lot when you have Tyreek Hill, who you're paying an insane amount of money, and you have Jalen Waddle.
But interestingly, and I'll have to double check the stats for this, but I'm pretty sure, and I'll do some research now while we go through your first bottom 3 team. We'll talk about Alex in a second. But I want to look at of the Miami running backs who actually had the most receptions. I'm pretty sure it was Raheem Mostert, which would make sense because he's kind of the speed guy. But anyway, really quick. Let me see. Sorry, give me 1 second. 2022 season. Receptions. Neither one had a lot, but it was Raheem Mostert, 31 to 22. But he averaged 9.6 fantasy points a game last year, even despite being in a committee. Jeff Wilson did 9.2. I'll take it. 9.6 points from a running back in the 14th round. Yeah, that's fine. I'll live with it. Alex, as far as his top three, mentioned if he doesn't pick himself, he would say Scott, Sean, and Zach top three for him. He didn't really explain why, but if he wants to, that
who were the three?
Scott, myself, and Zach.
Okay, so I got two of the three.
As
two of the three similar, but as we he doesn't need to explain himself. Just getting his opinion in there is good.
Jason, give us your top three, by the way, if you can. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, just while he types that up, if he is still on the stream here, just to kind of kick into the other side of it. Alex's third top three, Zach. Literally the first person that came to my mind when I'm thinking of a bottom roster.
Same! Ditto! Let's eviscerate. So this is the annual let's shit on Zach's team.
I know I'm always the one that says I don't like Zach's
makes the
playoffs. I know that's what happens. But no, in this situation, I just don't get what he was doing. Like, okay, Justin Jefferson at 1, I understand that. But like AJ Brown is, I get it. He's the number 1, but like they're a run-heavy team as it is, and there is Devontae Smith still there. Yes, I'm good with Derrick Henry there, but like Aaron Jones is in a committee who's going to be running a whole lot more because you don't have Aaron Rodgers anymore. Like AJ Dillon is still there. Amari Cooper, not big on anyone in Cleveland. Darren Waller couldn't do anything with Derek Carr. I don't think that's a huge upgrade going to Daniel Jones. DeAndre Hopkins is like 50 years old. Alvin Kamara is suspended to start the season. Russell Wilson threw less touchdown passes than he has bathrooms in his house. Portland Sutton is receiving the non-touchdown throws. Jordan Love is like in year 6 and finally going to become the starter. I just don't believe in him at all. Sky Moore, I'm actually pretty okay with. He's probably the number 1 wide receiver there, but like Travis Kelce is the receiver there. I think other than that, it gets really split up.
Yep.
Jacoby Myers, he got cut because he couldn't do anything for New England, and now he's going to Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't know if that's like Jimmy Garoppolo is not known for. Yeah, I do like Adam Thielen, but Adam Thielen also very old. Odell Beckham, ACL tear, very old. DJ Shark, who's the starting quarterback there? Oh, that's right, a rookie. I just like all the way down his roster. I'm just like, I just don't get it. I don't know what he was like. Again, I don't know the exact situation he was in. Like, I could sit here and go through every round and see like who was drafted right after him, so I could see if it was like completely terrible. But like, there's just like nobody outside of Derrick Henry and Justin Jefferson, which good was his first 2 picks. Like, I just don't like anybody else on his roster.
Yeah, no,
especially with where he got them.
I can tell you right now, the best thing Zach did for me is draft Justin J. Jettas at 1, because I will tell you, I was dreading having to draft, as a Miami Dolphins fan, having to draft Josh Allen at 2, which is what I would have done. I was overjoyed when Zach picked Jefferson at 1. And I just think you have Patrick Mahomes on the board. He's the number 1 quarterback in fantasy in a 2 quarterback league.
Quarterback league. But I mean, it is also a 3 wide receiver league.
It is, but like
it's this weird combination that like I 100% get Justin Jefferson. I'm good with that. All Kirk Cousins does is throw 4,000 yards a season. Justin Jefferson's the most talented wide receiver in the league. Like, I get that pick. I just want to see. You go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm less down on his. I was fine with Derrick Henry where he got him, although I think you can make the case for Saquon.
But exactly, I think you got Saquon right there. Right. I think Saquon had also already signed
at this point
his 1-year extension.
Yes, he had.
So like he's the guy, and he's playing for a contract now.
I don't hate his top 3. I really don't. I'm not as down on Derrick Henry or AJ Brown. I think you can make a case.
I like Derrick Henry. I think Saquon's a better pick there because Saquon's playing for a job. He's playing for the big contract.
But I am with you that I would not have drafted Aaron Jones at the end of the 4th. I would not have drafted Amari Cooper at the start of the 5th. I thought both of those. If you can get, both Jahmyr Gibbs and DJ Moore were available, who I think have way more upside. And and the other thing too. I love Darren Waller. I love the situation. I love everything I've seen in the preseason. I think he's going to be a stud. Zach, I think Darren Waller is how Zach is going to luck into making the playoffs again this year. But he really, really reached. Like Darren Waller at the end of the 6th, before TJ Hawkinson, before George Kittle. Like, I understand it's your guy, you want to get him, but like, that's a big reach. I was targeting Darren Waller, and I was not targeting, and I'm very big on him. I was not targeting him in the 6th round. And you know, again, I get the Hopkins and Kamara picks because they had, you know, I feel like this is that oracle moment from the league, right? Like, that's a great pick in 2021. Like, they have great upside if they're healthy and they have, you know, the circumstances are right, but they also could bomb. But you're just playing, like, if you're not drafting a quarterback in a 2-quarterback league until round 9, and your quarterbacks are Russell Wilson and Jordan Love, you are in trouble.
Yeah, I don't like it. I did the wait to draft a quarterback thing 2 years ago, and it bit me in the ass.
Think about this. Would you rather have Amari Cooper on that team as your 3rd wide receiver instead of, like, DeAndre Hopkins? I mean, he has DeAndre Hopkins, but would you rather be starting Jay Jettas, A.J. Brown, and DeAndre Hopkins with Kirk Cousins or Deshaun Watson? Or would you rather have Amari Cooper? Like, come on.
I agree. Like, so, you don't got to convince me.
So just some insight from the chat. Jason's been active. Alex posted in the chat saying every year Zach gets shit on. When are you going to learn? Which is fair.
We prefaced it with that.
Yeah, we know this is
coming.
And
I agree. I normally don't like Zach's team as it is, but like in particular, I just
at a certain point, Zach needs to give us $25 a piece because this is how his team makes the playoffs. Is we shit on him and he makes the playoffs. So here's Jason Smith's insight so far. Brad's team is so good until round 6, then it's hot garbage. Sean, myself, Jason Smith, and Jerry are the most likely best teams IMO. James has big question marks, and I hate Dak there. Scott depends so much on Jacobs' holdout, and if Madison stops sucking. I thought Jacobs ended his holdout.
I thought he did.
I'm pretty sure Josh Jacobs' holdout is done. Jonathan Taylor's the bigger question mark, which we will get to.
No, maybe he meant Jonathan Taylor. Because Jonathan Taylor, I'm just over.
He said Scott, yeah. So Waller is over.
We're about to get to that in just a second. So.
McMillan is decent, maybe a contender there. And McMillan is in the chat. And McMillan said thank you. Watson could be huge question mark, and Zach's team is hot garbage. So I guess a lot of agreement from Jason Smith here. McMillan, post in the chat your top 3 and bottom 3, and Alex, post your bottom 3 too. I haven't seen yours yet. So should we go to our? I think we're going to agree on our second bottom 3 team.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I hadn't fully gotten into it, but
okay. Well, I'll give mine then. It is window. It's okay. So we agree. It's not like, and I don't hate window, and I think he could make the playoffs. I don't hate Kelsey at 7.
So I was literally going to be mad about it. If Kelsey fell to me, I would have felt obligated to take him at 10 and 11, and I'm glad he didn't.
Yeah.
Just like, I get Travis Kelsey is overpowered for a tight end, but it's like, in a 3 wide receiver and a 2 quarterback, can you really afford to be using your first round pick on anything? I mean, and obviously running backs always super thin. It's just 2 years ago when we did 2 quarterbacks, I don't think we were a 3 tight end or 3 wide receiver league.
Right. Well, you're
so
correct.
It's like, so it made sense then to take a tight end because you didn't need that extra wide receiver. It's just, I don't know. Like I said, I would have felt obligated to take him at 11. Like the more I look at the roster, because like he just got hamstrung because of it. It's like, I do like Justin Herbert in the second there, but like Jonathan Taylor, is he even going to play?
So the latest I've heard about this is that there are still 2 teams, Miami and an unknown team, that are in contention. The most likely scenario they're saying is that he is traded as opposed to stays in Indy. But the crazy thing about Miami, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me because Miami just paid like gave a 3-year deal to Zach Sealer, their second D tackle. They've been talking about the entire fan base, and everybody wants them to extend Christian Wilkins, their number 1 D tackle, and they refuse to do it. He's the guy everyone loves, he's beloved, great player, but he wants to be paid as a top 10 DT. They're not willing to do it. And now you're going to pay Jonathan Taylor when you have 3 running backs already who you're projecting as a committee. You're going to get Jonathan Taylor. I don't hate it if you want to and not have to face these pass defenses. You want to make people stack the box against the Dolphins, and what way are you going to defend? But back to the fantasy side of it for a moment. Like you said, if Jonathan Taylor doesn't get traded, if there is some holdout situation, it's a massive risk. Yes, there is obviously huge floor, huge upside, but there is also massive risk. Breece Hall, we didn't I think Dalvin Cook was in New York.
Dalvin Cook was already there. Yeah.
That's
what I'm saying. That's why I'm just I'm so nervous for him, because it's Jonathan Taylor might not play. And I've been on that side of remember when I drafted Le'Veon Bell number 1 overall and then he sat the entire year? I've been there. I get it. Breece Hall's going to be splitting time with Dalvin Cook, and Dalvin Cook's the better player. And I know you said you loved Cam Akers earlier, but I had Cam Akers last year. He couldn't get on the field.
It was the second half of the year that sold me on Cam Akers. Is he really?
So at the very end, he kind of resurged, but it was pretty much hey, it doesn't matter anymore. We're not making the playoffs. Let's let him have some run. And he played well. It was but it seemed like when it mattered and when they could still have a shot, they just wouldn't put him on the field.
That's a fair point. That's a very fair point. And the thing, more than anything, the litmus test for a Windows team is you can be weak at a position, I think. Like I said, my team has 5 wide receiver 2s. I understand you can be weak at a position as long as you compensate for it and do something about it, right? The question for Windows' team, and the only way he makes the playoffs, is if everything breaks right. Because he's got Travis Kelce and Justin Herbert. They're absolute monsters. They're studs. They're great picks. But if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, he's screwed. If Breece Hall's in a committee, he's in trouble.
He's in trouble.
And more than anything, look at his wide receiver committee.
Yeah.
DK Metcalf.
I do like DK Metcalf.
Sure.
DK Metcalf in the 4th.
Sure.
But after that, it's Atlanta doesn't throw the ball. Atlanta doesn't throw the ball. George Pickens, I don't still believe in Kenny Pickett. Kadarius Toney maybe gets some, but he's the 3rd or 4th wide receiver, and then that's before you even have Kelce in the mix there. Jameson Williams suspended to start the year?
There is so much trouble in his wide receiver committee, and there's so many question marks on his team.
I already don't trust rookie quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson is the rawest of the rookies who are going to start.
Oh yeah, there's upside, but there's a huge risk.
Upside, but yeah,
And by the way, and that's the thing is, if you're going to get Anthony Richardson, you should have a Geno Smith or even a Matthew Stafford or someone who you can trust with a floor, right?
Yeah, no, he has
Desmond Ritter. What? And the only thing I'll say about this, and the only thing I'll say that was positive in his late round, is I do like James Cook in the 10th. I do think that was a good pick to stabilize some of his running back concern. I think there's big upside with James Cook. Devin Singletary now in Houston. I think there's a lot of opportunity for Cook there.
And the more I look at it, George Pickens in the 9th really isn't that bad. I probably would have taken him over Gabe Davis if he was still there. But yeah, no, I mean, honestly, I think he's going to end up starting George Pickens over Drake London. Oh, actually, no, because you got 3 wide receivers. You're going to have to start all of them.
Yeah, that's what.
Oh, yeah, he has 5 wide receivers on his roster right now.
It's not good.
And one of them's suspended, so he only has 4, and he's got to start 3 of them. And that's before you even get into the flex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's going to be starting a running back in the flex for sure. For sure.
But if Jonathan Taylor doesn't play, how can
Breece Hall, Cam Akers, James Cook? Yeah, I
that's probably it. Yeah, you're right.
I don't start 4 wide receivers if I'm window with that weak wide receiver stable. No. We got chat to catch up on. Jason Smith. Watson could be a big, huge question mark. Zach's team is, all caps, hot garbage. Jason Smith. Oh, yeah, forgot Jacob's news. Also, Jason Smith, you can't win a draft in the first round. You can lose, though. Kelce is a massive risk to repeat there. Agree with all the points. Also, Alex says his bottom three are Window, Brad, and James. And Jason McMillan has Window, Brad, and myself in the bottom three. Well, all right, buddy. Fair enough. I mean, I don't. I've named two of my bottom three. You want me to make a case for you? No, I'm just kidding. So I've named. I think you. So do we both agree on Zach and Window?
Yeah.
I will let you pick your third of the bottom three, and then I'll go.
So, I'm trying to remember who this is.
So the order is Zach, myself, James, Brad, McMillan. I'm sorry, Alex, McMillan, Window, Jason Smith.
Yeah, I have it sorted by team, so I just couldn't remember whose team name was the one that was on there. See, the problem is like a lot of the other teams just like I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel about Brad's, Alex's, and McMillan's teams. I don't hate them. I don't love them.
So I was kind of a similar thing. How I was leaning between you and McMillan on my top three. I'm kind of leaning between two on my bottom, and I think that I am going to go with James in my bottom here.
Okay.
Kind of the point you made earlier, like. I don't love Jamar Chase at three. When both, I mean, obviously not both, but like when one of Allen and Mahomes are still there, I feel like you got to take, like, of all the mocks I saw, Justin Jefferson was the only wide receiver that there was an argument for taking over those two quarterbacks.
Yeah, agreed.
Chase wasn't there on anything I saw. So I feel like you probably should have taken a quarterback there. Again, I've already spoken my piece about Bijan Robinson. I think he's highly overrated right now. I don't know. I feel like Dak was a little bit of a homer pick. Mark Andrews in the fourth. I mean, I don't know. I feel like where did I get Kittle again? The seventh?
Yeah.
Eighth. Like I just feel like
eighth.
Like I feel like Andrews is just a little high there. Mike Evans, it's Baker Mayfield throwing to him now. You know, it's not Tom Brady. It's not Jameis Winston. It's Baker Mayfield. And I just keep going down the list. Like J.K. Dobbins, I'm not a huge. I mean, I think that they really want to emphasize Lamar Jackson this year. But I mean, Dobbins could be fine. Marquise Brown, I've heard not good things coming out of Arizona. And again, who's his quarterback for the first however long of the season? Colt McCoy, who hasn't been relevant since he played at Texas. I do like Geno Smith there. David Montgomery, we already kind of talked about the committee that's going to be going on there. Brian Robinson, obviously going to be in the committee. It's just one of those things. Like as you go down the list, I'm just like, I just don't love any of it. There's a few picks that I like, but like, yeah.
Yeah. No, there's definitely, like I said, James is I've had him in my top three, but I would say of the teams I named in my top three, he's the one that carries the most risk. He has, I think, as much risk as Window. I think he has way more upside, but I think he has as much risk as Window. And it could all go wrong for James, absolutely. I will say, like I said, I gave you my kind of, I tipped my hand a little bit in that it's going to be Brad, Alex, or McMillan for me. To round out my bottom three. And I think they're all kind of like playoff contender status. If I had to pick one, I went with the one who I think has the most positional weakness. And I think that's going to be Brad. I think it's close. I don't hate. I actually love his first two picks. I would have done the same exact thing that Brad did in his first two rounds in Josh Allen and CeeDee Lamb. I think he nailed it. But from there, and let me be clear. There are guys I love on Brad's team. Jahmyr Gibbs, love him. Christian Watson, love him. And the guys he got good value for. Rashad White, good pick. Jahan Dotson, good pick. Dalvin Cook in the 10th, good pick. The concern I have with Brad's team is quarterback and tight end. Because he is starting two quarterbacks. And right now, the second quarterback is Kenny Pickett or Brock Purdy. And I understand
Brock
that
Purdy looked good.
He absolutely did. But there is also a lot more film on him this year than there was last year. If Brock Purdy is the next Tom Brady, then Brad is just fine. But if Brock Purdy has a year two, a sophomore slump, if he regresses in year two, you're starting Kenny Pickett or Brock Purdy unless you're trading for somebody. And do you have the assets to trade for a quarterback? Maybe, if your guys hit. But you have just as much question marks as anybody else on that front. And your tight end, by the way, is another position where you're on the waiver wire.
He sold all the way on tight end. Which I mean, obviously we've already talked about it. If you don't have Kelsey, tight end can kind of be a fucking crap shoot.
Sure, but get somebody.
Get somebody. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got Tyler Higbee as the last pick. I get who? How do you pronounce his name? I've never even heard of it. I wouldn't have been able to tell you that person was on a roster.
So here's the thing, right? The move for me is if you're like, why are you drafting two defenses in the 15th and 16th rounds? You can have
if you're. I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean,
if you really want the Philly defense, I understand. But the problem is that in that round, when you pick Philly's defense, guess who goes? Dalton Schultz, Dalton Kincaid. Both were fine. Much better, I would say, streaming tight end options than Okonkwo. I also would have gone Tyler Higbee over Okonkwo for that matter. Like Tennessee, but like whatever. It's just you really are now at a point where because you did not draft a tight end at all, you're having to make up that position. You're having to rely on Brock Purdy or Kenny Pickett to be a QB2, which is possible, but there's also risk there. And, then you hope you have enough running back and wide receiver talent. I just think and
I think that's part of things. I think like his middle round tight ends I also don't love. Christian Watson, it's not Aaron Rodgers throwing to him anymore.
No.
Jahan Dotson, I'm not a believer in Sam Howell. I don't know if you guys are. Let me know in the chat if you're a believer in Sam Howell, but I don't think so. He couldn't win the starting job over Taylor Heineke.
Did you hear there's a great fantasy football joke here. Did you hear about the new stadium they're building in Green Bay?
No.
Yeah, they're putting the foundation between Christian Watson's hands at the point of the catch. Someone said this joke, and I love that it got crickets. Thank you, as do most of my jokes. But the idea being like he had a lot of issues last year with like balls going through his hands because he has issues with his mechanics in terms of catching the ball. Say nothing about his physicals. Like he is absolutely a physical specimen you want for a wide receiver one. He's absolutely got the build you want for a wide receiver one. He's got the athletic ability. It's an issue of technique and mechanics. And yeah, do you really trust Jordan Love to replicate for Christian Watson what Aaron Rodgers did? I
don't. I mean, one of the things I've already talked about is how I am not a believer in Jordan Love.
Yeah, and just of the, like I said, I had him, McMillan, and Alex in the same grouping, and of those three, I just like the balance of Alex's team a lot more. I like the balance of McMillan's team a lot more. They both look like don't you just see like Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers, Nick Chubb, Khalil Herbert, and A.J. Dillon is kind of a committee, and Jeff Wilson there too. And then like Devontae, Olave, DJ Moore, Brandon Ayuk, Tyler Lockett, Christian. Don't you just see that team making the playoffs for Freiermuth at tight end, or being on the playoff bubble? Same for McMillan's team, like McCaffrey. I was low on Diggs. I thought Diggs was a big reach at 15 or wherever he got him. But like Lawrence and Watson, solid kind of QB1, QB2 range. Lawrence has major upside too. And Najee, Debo, TJ Hawkinson. Hell, Damian Pierce wasn't a bad pick where he got him.
I mean, like I said, I had him on my kind of bubble there, so the top three. So
yeah. Last update on the chat: Colt McCoy was released today, so pour some out for Colt.
So who is the starting quarterback in Arizona?
Nobody knows. My hope is that Johnny Football comes back after the documentary now. So Josh Dobbs or Clayton Tune will be the starter till Kyler gets back, Alex says. And then Sam says Dalvin greater than. As she would. Florida State, shout out.
Yeah. He's the reason why. Actually, I don't even remember who it was now. Who drafted the other New York Jets running back.
So we're 50 minutes in. We got to do biggest steal, biggest reach, biggest risk, and then shoot off our predictions for week 1. So, biggest steal of the draft. Who got it?
Oh man, you're gonna have to go first on that.
Okay. I'm actually, to be honest with you, I'm doing it on the fly as well, and I feel like this always ends up being someone we've talked about before. It's really tough.
Like, I don't think there was any super huge reaches this year. Not super huge.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think there was a big like, wow, this pick is amazing. Wow, this pick is unbelievable. If I had to pick just one that I thought was like best value, it's really tough.
So yeah, I guess right now I'd probably say what I think is best value is Michael Thomas in the 11th. Like the upside there is tremendous, and again, 11th round for your 1, 2, 3, 4, like your fourth wide receiver. I feel like
that's a really fair pick. That's the best wide receiver.
I mean, obviously he didn't play a game last year, but like the year before, I think it was that he led the league in receiving. And again, quarterback upgrade. I don't know. I like the pick in the 11th round.
I'm going to say, and this is a tough one for me, I'm actually going to toot my own horn a little bit here. I was down between Scotty with Lamar Jackson at 9 or myself at 22 with Saquon. And I don't, neither one is like mind-blowing, right? I think they're both good value for where they got picked. They're both like, and that's why it's hard to pick a steal in this draft, because I feel like everyone went kind of where they were valued. But I just think those are both guys who, like, I think Saquon should have gone somewhere in the middle of round.
I would say at least somewhere in the second round. Him going to the third is just so surprising to me.
Right. And Lamar Jackson, I thought certainly in the top 7 or 8 picks was going to be off the board, and goes to 9. And it's like, okay, Scotty did the right thing by snatching him up. So those were my kind of 2 if I had to narrow it down. Biggest reach.
Again, I just don't feel like, I was just saying, I don't feel like anyone super reached like too hard on anything.
Oh, I totally
things
do.
We've kind of. Oh, you do?
Darren Waller at 60.
Yeah, and Darren Waller, that is a little high. I mean, I guess kind of the things we've already touched on. We've touched on Darren Waller. We've touched on Travis Kelce at 7. Again, Jonathan Taylor in the 3rd round might be I guess it's hard to call it a reach, but it's like, but if he doesn't play,
that's my biggest risk.
That's gonna be the big, yeah. It's the like
that's biggest risk for sure is Jonathan Taylor at 27 or whatever it is, because that's your 3rd round pick, your first running, your RB1 when Josh Jacobs and Joe Mixon are on the board. You have invited a ton of Najee Harris, even like you've invited a ton of risk onto your team, and this is what happens when you draft Travis Kelce in the 1st round. Is you need to, if you're going to draft a tight end in round 1, you need to nail the rest of your picks. And instead, you took a roulette spin on Jonathan Taylor. Alex says Deontay Johnson in the 9th was great value by me. Thank you, Alex. I mean, he's still like a wide receiver 2 or...
Yeah, I mean, it kind of sucks for him because like he was a wide receiver 2 before, and then it seems like he's supposed to win the job, and then Pickens is now the better player. Like,
yeah. Alex also says Jonathan Taylor in the 3rd was bad. So I think that's it, right? I think that's everything we covered. So
yep.
So with that said, let's get into our top 3, bottom 3.
What?
Or I'm sorry.
Did you just have a stroke?
I think no, our week 1 predictions.
There we go.
So, first matchup I'm looking at. Jason, as is tradition, can we start with the commissioner's matchup? Sean Fitzgerald versus Jason Smith. The projection has it a 51-49 Heat in favor of myself. And let me see if I can actually, I know this is fantasy guess. Let me see if I can get the scoreboard, the box score on here. To do that little, I like those check marks they do. Nah, but I'll need to adjust it. All right, hang on a second. Did this the wrong way, and now I'm paying for it.
Got to hit that box score instead of matchup.
That's what I'm doing. I just was a pain in the butt. All right. Give me a second. I'm going to fix it. I'm doing this on the stream. That's fine. That's fine. That's good. Okay, good enough. All right. We got it there. It's working. Oh, making changes on the fly. Who's good? Okay. Who you got, buddy?
So, obviously, it's close. It's kind of funny because there's more check marks on the right side, but then you're up by. I mean, the difference is obviously like a tenth of a point per player. Like, it's obviously close. I think just the overall, like, Patrick Mahomes is the big advantage that you have at the quarterback 1 spot.
Oh,
Outside of
absolutely.
that, he kind of up and down the roster looks a little bit better.
Absolutely.
Like I said, I like Austin Eckler over Saquon. I like Tony Pollard over Stevenson. I'm on Ra, Waddle. Like it's pretty much like every position, and that I feel like he's just. Again, we've already talked about how I'm high on Michael Thomas, even though he's not getting the check mark in that spot with Chris Godwin. Because again, I'm not big on Tampa Bay in general. Baker Mayfield is not Tom Brady, even 40, 50-year-old Tom Brady. So in this, I'm gonna have to lean Jason on this. Yeah, I just think like top to bottom, it looks a little bit better.
They're going to make it bigger. Give me 1 second. All right, I'll try to make it bigger for you, McMillan. That's what she said. Are we not doing phrasing anymore? All right, can you see it more clearly now, McMillan? Hopefully you can. Anyway, I do think ultimately Jason has the better team. I make up ground potentially with my quarterbacks.
That's really the big thing. Yeah. I mean, what is it? You're 7 points ahead at the first quarterback and 4 points. I mean, you're up by 11 points on quarterbacks, and then it's a 1-point game.
I can tell you I'm probably not changing my defense. I'm probably going to rock with the Dolphins defense for a little while and see how they do because I like Vic Fangio a lot, and I think they're going to get trounced by the Chargers. I think that's going to be a shootout of a game between Tua and Justin Herbert, and that I think bodes well for Jalen Waddle. There's just a lot of matchups that on Jason Smith's team that I really like. Again, Austin Eckler, I talked about Miami conceding a lot. Tony Pollard against the Giants D, like, I don't remember the Giants having a particularly efficient run defense. Sun God in Kansas City is going to be a shootout. That also favors Mahomes, obviously, but like, there's just a lot to like about Jason's talent. I think he's got the higher floor. It all comes down to like what my wide receivers do. If my if one or two of my wide receivers go off, I give myself the edge. But I feel like my wide receivers could also put up 4, and then I lose. So It's
Like, is it gonna crazy surprise you if Chris Godwin ends up with like 2 catches for 45 yards?
right, exactly. My team, and this is going to be a kind of a dice roll for me. The first couple weeks, feeling out who is going to be a true wide receiver 1, 2, 3 on my roster is going to be where my season gets made or lost. It's going to take some growing pains, and I think Jason Smith's going to be one of those casualties. So I would give Jason Smith the edge. Jason does say Mahomes and Fielder are, I think he meant Fields, are lots of points. So moving to, this is Window versus Zach. Right now the projection is massively in favor of Zach to the tune of about, well, I mean massively, it's like 12 points, but that's a wide margin in fantasy.
Pretty big gap there, yeah.
And I it's just across the board. I mean, it's at every position seemingly. I'm surprised.
I think this is going to be closer than what it looks like.
Yeah.
I don't really get how Russell Wilson is projected as high as he is.
Especially was just going to say that
compared to Justin Herbert, but this is why I was talking about like not liking Windows team. It's like he's starting Kadarius Toney, who's projected 7.5.
Yeah.
Like Drake London, like, oh my god, just looking at it all side by side now, it's like,
it's funny. These are two of our. This is a potential Sacco Bowl based on what we've talked about.
Yeah, and like even like where did he draft Breece Hall again?
He drafted Breece Hall at, let's see,
in the 5th round.
Yeah.
It's a 3 wide receiver, 2 quarterback. He drafted him in the 5th round. You expected him to be a starter, and like he's projected for 6.6 because Dalvin's there.
Yeah.
That's scary.
I'm gonna give the nod to Zach.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
And I think it honestly just, I mean, it's not just because of the check marks. Like you said, I think Justin Herbert's going to outscore Russell Wilson. But,
yeah.
And I don't hate Windows running backs, but it is just the wide receiver issues. I don't think Travis Kelce is going to outscore Darren Waller to the point where Window makes up the difference on Jay Jettas, A.J. Brown, Amari Cooper.
Yeah, you can make an argument. I mean, again, there's 4 wide receivers starting on each team. You can make an argument that all 4 matchups go to Zach.
I do you one better. Aside from DK Metcalf, he wins every matchup.
It's the next 4, yeah.
Like, yeah. And
it's like Justin Jefferson 1, DK Metcalf 2, the next 3. Yeah, God, jeez. Like,
and aside,
maybe George Pickens goes over Amari Cooper here, but like, I don't. Maybe.
And there's
obviously going with Zach in this matchup.
Yeah, same. Next up, Alex versus Brad. Projection favors Brad by like 2.5. This is a good matchup.
This is looking a lot closer.
And it's looking a lot higher scoring. I could see both of these teams, like, not being, like, number 1 or 2, but, like, being in that kind of 3 to 6 range in scoring.
Really quick, Brad, do us a solid. Set your lineup before we get here.
Did he not?
I mean, he's not starting 2 quarterbacks.
Here he is. Is he not?
I don't know. I'm seeing Kenny Pickett and Brock Purdy.
Oh, he's not. Well, what's Purdy's injury status?
I didn't think he had one right now.
Yeah, I think he's going to play.
Yeah, no. I mean, he has no injury designation on his website right now.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's Brock Purdy. So we assume Brock Purdy is going to start.
The problem is, like, look at the projections on that, though. Miles Sanders is projected for 13.1. His 2 quarterbacks are at 14.4 and 13.8. It's not like a huge difference on it.
But he's got Josh Allen.
And he's projected to win.
But he's got Josh Allen, so you only need to start one of those 2.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying, though, comparing those 2 to the person he has in the Superflex spot right now is what I meant.
Yeah, I mean, this is a close one in my view. I'm going to give the edge to Alex, primarily because I think Hurts and Allen's kind of a wash. I think Chubb is better than ETN. I like Gibbs over Herbert. Adams and CD's a wash. I'd give the slight edge to CD. I like Olave over Wilson. I like more over Watson. I like Muth over Okonkwo. I like Ayuk over Rashad White, but it's close. But that's going to... and then Miles Sanders... Well, I guess Kenny Pickett or Brock Purdy versus Aaron Rodgers. I still like Aaron Rodgers.
But yeah, I think if he's moving one of those quarterbacks up, I actually think Miles Sanders gets the start over Jahmyr Gibbs, though, right? I mean, maybe not, but there's an argument that
maybe.
Miles Sanders... There's an argument that Miles Sanders could still start here.
Maybe. How much do you trust Carolina's running game over Detroit's?
Neither.
I would trust Detroit. Detroit can run the ball.
I mean, they had a lot of rushing touchdowns last year when Jamal Williams.
Yeah, that's what I'm
But
saying. Good
he's
offensive
normal
line.
then.
Yeah, no, but yeah, it's Jahmyr Gibbs. They drafted Jahmyr Gibbs to be the RB1.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I mean, just looking at it, I think I do like Brad's upside a little bit better here.
See, I like Alex's personally, but that's our first disagreement.
Damn, I guess we have to restart the entire podcast.
Podcast over.
Bullshit.
For the first time all podcast, it feels like. Also, I do respect that, like, I think Alex, myself, like, several people got their defenses in this, like, the homer defenses. And we had some homer picks in the draft this year. More so than normal. Now, by the way, Jason Smith, Zach, Brad, James, and Scotty. Change your team names. I guess Scotty's is kind of fine because that's not technically his team name from last year, but like, make a team name. I will say that I think, as much as I freaking hate it, I think Jason McMillan has the best team name in the drafts in the league so far. Like he roasted me. But yeah, the Veers behind the couch versus the New York Bottles. Who you got?
Oh, okay. Let me click into that really quick. All right.
Also, what does your team name mean?
It's kind of a two-part thing. If you've ever seen The Office, when Dwight gets a concussion and Michael burns his foot and they're at the hospital, Michael asks the doctor's like, "Doctor, what's more serious, a head injury or a foot injury?" And without hesitation, the doctor's like, "A head injury." It's like, okay, well, you don't really know all the facts here. And between my two quarterbacks, with the leg injury for Joe Burrow and the concussion problems for Tua, that was kind of the...
That's really good. I might have to give you the nod for best team name.
I was really hoping that I could fit what's more serious in the first headline and then do head or leg, but it wouldn't fit.
I understand. Context is important.
Yeah. Between these two, I see that James is projected a little bit higher, but I think I'm leaning towards McMillan here. I like Trevor Lawrence over Dak Prescott. I like Christian McCaffrey over Bijan. I like Najee Harris. Jamar Chase and Stephon Diggs. I know you're not high on him, but like you can see it. Stephon Diggs was the number 4 wide receiver last year. I feel like that's pretty close. Deebo Samuel, Mike Evans can be pretty close. Hawkinson and Andrews pretty close. I'm just like, I'm kind of just leaning just a little bit on each player more towards McMillan's side.
I am going to go with James because I got to defend my take of him in top 3. I think there's a lot of potential for Bijan and Dobbins to get. I mean, maybe not. Obviously, McCaffrey is the best running back of the bunch, but like I think Bijan and J.K. Dobbins are going to be run into the ground this season. I think Najee Harris has more question marks with Jaylen Warren kind of emerging a little bit. I also think every report, and I have Deshaun Watson in 2 other leagues, so I don't hate drafting him. But every report in training camp is he sucks in the passing game. Like, he looks bad. And Deshaun Watson.
Oh, yeah, no, like I have no faith in him.
Right.
He didn't do anything last year when he came back. I know it was mid-season, but like, he hasn't really played in 2-3 years.
I would much rather have Geno Smith going against the LA Rams than Deshaun Watson going against the Bengals, right? Like,
Yeah, no, I get it.
I think it's going to be close, but I do think Mark Andrews also will outscore TJ Hawkinson. I think it'll be close again, but I think that's a matchup that favors James.
I get it.
I'm going to give the slight nod to James here.
Totally get it.
Last matchup, and we're out in a tight hour and 10 minutes and change. Jerry versus Scotty, and Scotty the 8-point favorite.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised it's as high as it is.
Same.
I mean, I'm still a little up in the air whether or not I'm going to start Buffalo's defense. Like, I might just stream something off of free agency. And I just, like I said, there's just a few people that I'm a little surprised their projections are quite as low as they are. I don't know, Joe Mixon only being 13 when I'm seeing things like Josh Jacobs sitting closer to 16. I think it's going to be obviously closer than an 8-point spread that it's currently sitting at. Yeah, no, I mean, I feel like I'm leaning a little bit towards myself here. I'm obviously expecting my team to do well. Again, I feel like Joe Mixon and Kenneth Walker are like legitimately the starters there, and they're barely getting projections over. I mean, Josh Jacobs is obviously the main starter, but like Alexander Madison, obviously he's not sharing. Obviously Alexander Madison is good. Whenever Dalvin Cook was out, Alexander Madison became like an automatic start.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like it's a lot closer than what the 8-point spread is. I'm gonna obviously give myself the slight nod there.
I think this is I feel like we say this all the time, but it is gonna be a close matchup.
I think Keenan Allen, Mike Williams could be the difference here.
Yeah, I was gonna say what for me, what gives me, much like your running backs, I think are better. I think his wide receivers are better. I mean Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith, Keenan Allen. I love those 3 wide receivers versus like, I know you're big on Cooper, like Calvin Ridley, but like Cooper Kupp, Calvin Ridley, Mike Williams. I am down on Mike Williams. I love Kupp. I think Ridley's got a ton of upside too, but there's also a little question mark there. Tight end is going to be closer. Like Kittle, Goddard are around the same range. Kittle's a slight favorite. Yeah. Honestly, a lot might also depend on the flex, like which one of you bombs out at the flex spot, because it's Jamal Williams in his first game in New Orleans versus Javonte Williams' first game back in Denver.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if I'm starting Jamal Williams there yet. Like,
sure.
Again, it's one of those things where like, it's half point PPR. Jamal Williams doesn't get a lot of the work, but Jamal Williams just like would not stop scoring touchdowns last year.
I think you have the bigger chance for your guys to boom, generally speaking, but also like even if Tua goes off, chances are that means Hill's had a day. Yeah. So like there's definitely some risk there that that might limit some of Tua's upside in a shootout against the Chargers. I'm gonna give the slight edge to Scotty, but
I get it.
Again, I don't think you make a case either way. So that's it. We did a podcast for the first time in a long time. Thank you, Jerry, for being on it. Thank you. This might have been the most engagement we've had in the chat between Jason Smith, Alex, and Jason McMillan, and even Sam showed out in the chat. 4 chatters contemporaneously in a stream. That might be the most concurrent views we've had. So
yeah, since that one random guy who commented and then never came back.
I know. Wouldn't that be nice if we could just get random people back in here? Oh well, maybe someday. But thanks for watching. For those who didn't watch this live, post a comment on the YouTube page or something, or post a comment on Facebook. Yeah. It means you and me, we're donezo.
I know we gave you guys tons of notice. I think it was like half an hour, but
that's what's even more impressive about the guys who came on. So I really appreciate it. And yeah. Good luck in week 1. Football's back, baby. It's the best time of year. So, all right, guys, we're stopping the stream. Have a great night. Good luck in your week 1 match.